Got a lot to get into today. Peyton Manning hosted the ESPY Awards, which to me, I don't know that we necessarily need ESPY Awards. Do we need a sports award show? Just think about this for a second. Do we need a sports award show? Because we already have that, right? Like all the different leagues present to you an award for being the best in your sport. And this idea that we need to come together in a large group and then recognize each other across all the sports has always seemed a little bit silly to me. Just a little bit. Like, why do we need to celebrate like the best comeback athlete of the year when both the NBA and NFL have awards for that? And it's usually an NBA or an NFL guy that would win it. Jordy Nelson winning the award last night. What do we need that for? Like, what do we need the ESPY Awards for, really? Right? And I haven't watched the ESPY Awards in like 11 years. Like, it's been a decade, essentially, since I last watched the ESPY Awards. And I didn't watch it last night, but I did consider watching it because Peyton Manning was hosting it. And I think I do regret a little bit not watching it for Manning because he's got a great sense of comedic timing. And I think we always know when a guy is funny. Like Peyton's a guy, he's always so affable and so easygoing. I think you could have guessed that Peyton Manning's funny. But here's the thing. There's different degrees of funny, right? Not everybody is hilarious. Not everybody ought to be a comedian, right? Like, I think I can be funny, but I'm funny for a guy you know. I'm not hilarious, right? But, you know, a guy like Louis C.K. or a guy like David Cupelli, like those guys are absolutely drop dead funny. You have friends that are funnier than you, and what is it about your friend like that you think is funny? Because he could just be funny for a guy you know. That doesn't make him actually funny, right? Which I've had friends say that to each other, like, yeah, man, you should totally do stand-up. Like, no, you shouldn't do stand-up at all. Don't do stand-up. That what you're doing in our group of friends does not work on a stage in front of people expecting you to be funny. But Peyton Manning is not just funny for a football player. Peyton Manning is actually funny. Peyton Manning was actually hilarious last night, and I believe that the joke of the night, the one that at least was being spread all over social media that I kept seeing on Twitter every 12 seconds, was when he roasted Kevin Durant. He had the joke about the women's gymnastics team and how they were so dominant that Kevin Durant told him that he wanted to play for them next year. And that he didn't think that Kevin Durant was going to start for that team, which I thought that was very funny. Kevin, based on his expression, did not find that as funny. But even Kevin's mom next to him was laughing. So what do you say about that? I do think on some level that Peyton Manning did give Kevin Durant and involved in the joke Russell Westbrook a heads up, because at one point Kevin Durant covers his mouth as though like he might start laughing if that doesn't go the right way. But still, whether or not it was planned or not, Peyton Manning is a guy that I think is legitimately funny and had the timing and has got the comedic chops. I would like to watch Peyton Manning host a sports show. That's what I'd like. I thought about it because I think there are guys that you're like, man, we want him in the broadcast booth. That's what we want. And Peyton Manning would be good in a broadcast booth, but I think Peyton Manning would be really good on a set. You know, I think it would. I think he'd move the needle for a lot of people, and I think he's popular enough, and I think he's got enough weight behind him. And then on top of that, he's actually very funny, that it could work. I would be a very big fan of that. I thought he did a good job hosting the ESPYs from the little bits of it that I saw. I just don't see the point in sitting down and wasting hours of my life away watching an award show for sports when the NBA has turned their awards that they give out into an award show. The NFL has turned their awards that they give out into an award show. The NHL has had theirs as an award show for a very long time. So I don't see the point in sitting down and like just going, oh yeah, no, now we're going to do this like we do with the movies. The difference being, of course, that when they do the Golden Globes and they do the Oscars and they do the Emmys, right? And the Tony Awards, when they do all of those things, that is their award show, right? That would be like if they had an even larger, bigger award show where it was just a giant entertainment award show and people were winning awards across all kinds of disciplines. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't compute to me. It doesn't add up, and I just don't feel like watching it. I haven't enjoyed the ESPY Awards, and I know that they've wrapped it up with the whole Jimmy Valvano thing, and I think that all that money goes towards a very good cause of fighting cancer. I'm just not going to sit down and watch the ESPYs. I just don't have it in me. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. And then just a little bit of tennis news before we jump into the main story of the day, which is that Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss have stepped in the boo-boo. But before that, Wimbledon, Venus Williams. Venus has advanced, won her semifinal match, and so she's going to be moving on to the finals. Venus with an opportunity to be the oldest tennis player, the oldest woman to win Wimbledon. And I think that she would deserve that honor were she to get it, because she has been so good for so long. And I think in recent years, we have forgotten about Venus, in large part because she gets overshadowed by Serena constantly, and that they meet very often in a lot of these majors. And Serena just blows her away because she's younger, right? Venus is what, 30, I want to say 38 now. 38's pretty old for tennis. 38's pretty old for tennis. Like, we start to consider you in decline in tennis when you're like 33. I remember those conversations starting for Roger Federer like 3 years ago. He started to decline. There's an obvious lost step in Roger Federer, and he started to decline. Now he's 35, and we're like, well, we don't know how much longer we've got of Roger Federer. Venus is 38. She's 38 and on her way to a Wimbledon final, which is amazing and fantastic. And so, yeah, I think she deserves a lot of credit. I think during this stretch of time, Serena's pregnancy is probably the best thing that could have happened to her, because it's like, oh, how do I get my sister out of the tour? And it's not an injury and it's not something catastrophic. Oh, she's just pregnant. Well, then, yeah, and now I can dominate like I used to a little bit. And yeah, that's the thing that I kind of forgot. Like, Venus is just really, really good at tennis. We spend all of our time focusing in on Serena because she has been so dominant. And I don't know about you all, but I don't watch every round of Wimbledon. And I'm a decently solid tennis fan. I do not watch every round of Wimbledon because I do not know all of these people. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't pretend like I know everything about sports. I do not know all of these people. And the only people that I'm aware of currently in women's tennis at this moment, we can't count Serena because she's not playing, Venus and Coco Vandeweghe. Okay, those are the only two names that I recognize. And I don't even know, did Coco win her thing the other day? I don't know. But because I just root for the stars of tennis. And on the women's side, it's mostly just the Williams sisters. And as long as they've got Sharapova suspended, it's just mostly the Williams sisters. I mean, those are the people that I know. And then on the men's side, Novak Djokovic injures his elbow. So I guess we can give this next one, barring any news that I'm not aware of, to Roger Federer. Is it fair to say Roger Federer is going to win Wimbledon again? Because how good is that guy? Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. So we're going to be talking about this all show for multiple different angles, which is Ole Miss and Hugh Freeze and the NCAA. They've been going back and forth for a while now because the NCAA is investigating Ole Miss for a lot of violations. To me, when that investigation became something that I was aware of, it was on draft night, not this past draft night, but the draft night last year, where Laramie Tunsil, the video of Laramie Tunsil came out of Laramie Tunsil and his gas mask in which he was inhaling what I imagine to be copious amounts of marijuana, and the text messages that Laramie Tunsil also sent to a coach, where the coaches were clearly paying his rent. That he said, his mom's electricity bill was about to go out if the school could help him pay his rent. And then by the school, he meant the coaching staff, which is illegal. The school can help. If Laramie Tunsil had petitioned the school, I don't know what programs that the University of Mississippi has in order to make sure that their students are not struggling in that way. But if Laramie Tunsil had petitioned the school and the school had officially on the books, on the record, helped out, that's a very different thing than you talk to the coaches and the coaches pay that for your mom, because it almost felt like, okay, that's one of those agreements that we have where if anything's going on with your family, if they can't make rent or they can't make bills or whatever, it's fine. Just give us a heads up and we'll help you out, which is illegal. That counts as a gift from the school. They can't do that. Everybody knows this. Those are the rules. As much as you might want to help a player, help a guy, that's what it is. And so, yeah, the sanctions did come down after that point, I think a whole lot more intensely. And Ole Miss did the old bait and switch where they were just like, no. That's not us. That's not Hugh Freeze. No, not at all. That was the last guy that was here. That was Houston Nutt, which that's a great name. That's a great name. But no, it was Houston Nutt. It was all his fault. And Houston Nutt, for what it was worth, I cannot think of a more Machiavellian way of getting revenge than to simply unload a gigantic lawsuit the day before Hugh Freeze is scheduled to talk to the SEC media. That I am of the belief that he did that very much on purpose. That's not an accident. Hugh Freeze was speaking to the SEC media. He was scheduled to go first. And Houston Nutt and his lawyers dropped this bomb on Ole Miss right before. And it's what to me ends up being funny is that SEC Country did a very good job of finding all the quotes that Hugh Freeze had to say on the day about this lawsuit. And to me, even like given the context, they're absolutely hilarious. They're absolutely hilarious because it's just one of those things where Hugh Freeze does not understand or does not seem to be aware of how much trouble he's in, right? Like the self-awareness is entirely lacking. And this is what I mean, right? He comes on now. He's on the SEC Now set. And he says, I think it's the 5th year in a row that I've been here and I haven't been able to talk about our players. Well, of course not. You've been investigated since the day you arrived. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Of course no one wants to talk about your players. The question of whether or not you might still be coaching at Ole Miss is, I think, deeply the more important question. Because every time the investigation ramps up with you, you might not have a job here. You might not be here for the 2018 SEC Media Days. Right? Like, why would he say that? And then, of course, like my favorite thing that he said all day long, in the sea of great things that he said, was, I'm disappointed in the timing of it. It's not something I was fond of. Don't know much about it right now. Well, that's the point, Hugh. Hugh, listen to me, buddy. That's the point. Of course they don't want you to know anything about it right now. He wanted you to go into the media days with no shield. He wanted you to have no protection from this. He wanted you to be destroyed by the media. And of course, you're disappointed by the timing of it. You know what he's disappointed by? He's disappointed by anybody alleging that he committed violations that he did not commit. Right? And it would appear that he has the text messages that prove that he got violations shoveled onto him that he didn't commit. He hates you, right? Like Ole Miss and Hugh Freeze need to realize this right now, that Houston Nutt is doing everything that he can do right now to damage them because he hates them, okay? He hates them. Like, get your head out of the sand. He does not like you on a personal level, right? Like, there's certain situations where you just have to realize, like, I'm just working with you because I have to. Like, I see it in the NBA. LeBron James and the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers is Dan Gilbert. That LeBron still very much hates Dan Gilbert, right? Like, everything that Dan Gilbert has had to do since LeBron James has come back has been LeBron James's revenge on Dan Gilbert. Like, Dan Gilbert never gave LeBron a team when he was in Cleveland the first time, so LeBron leaves. Then Dan Gilbert writes this horrible letter about LeBron James, calling him the so-called king and everything else in Comic Sans. And then LeBron decides, you know what, I'm going to go back to Cleveland because it's great for my brand, and plus they have some players on there that can play. I think I might be able to win a title. He does, And he has basically been making Dan Gilbert pay for this team. They're over the cap. They're paying the luxury tax. He is making Dan Gilbert pay out of his nose because he hates him, right? Like, LeBron James is part of an agency where the people who represent him represent a number of players on the team. So they negotiate higher contracts, in my opinion, against Dan Gilbert in order to make him pay more money because LeBron hates him. And why won't LeBron sign a long contract with Dan Gilbert? Because he hates you, Dan. And why won't he tell you what he plans on doing in the future? Because it would make your life a whole lot more easy. Because he hates you, Dan. And I'm looking at Hugh Freeze and I'm looking at Ole Miss, and they're just scratching their heads going, well, gee, I wonder why he decided to release that lawsuit the day before we were supposed to talk to the media. Because he hates you. Because he doesn't like you at all. How is this surprising or shocking in any particular kind of way? It shouldn't be expected. Right? Like, you should see that lawsuit come out the day before and go, oh, actually, we might have miscalculated this one. Maybe the guy that we decided to make the scapegoat, maybe the guy that we decided to put all the blame on, maybe he should have been involved in this with us, right? Because that's how I would run it if I could run this sort of thing. I don't know if I can, but that's how I would run it if I could run this sort of thing, which is, this is how I would do it. I would make a guy my fall guy, and then I take care of the fall guy. Right? You don't leave the fall guy out in the cold when the fall guy can just turn around and sue you, which I just have to believe that Ole Miss never imagined he would do. And the fact that he waited a year to do it, he didn't file that lawsuit immediately. He waited an entire year, the day before SEC Media Days. It's like some kind of supervillain plot. It really is. Houston Nutt, like a character, like just somebody that Machiavelli would dream up, just absolutely put the dagger into Ole Miss yesterday. And you got Hugh Freeze answering all kinds of questions and sounding all the while like an idiot. Like, he wants to talk about his long snapper. That's all that Hugh Freeze wants to talk about. Hugh Freeze has no intention of talking about any of this other stuff, except that's all the media wants to talk about. So those are all the questions you want to answer. Like, he's talking about it, about what he wants to do, and he's thinking to himself, well, we don't think about future suspensions, Freeze said. I think today, this is what I'm thinking about today, about what I can do to help these kids. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, what you could do to help these kids? Don't commit multiple NCAA violations and then talk to me about helping the kids. Because here's the thing. I think that college coaches do want to help players grow up and help players become men, but most of them cannot. Most of them are in a position where if you do not win, you don't have a job, okay? And the guys that are not in that position have already done the winning, right? Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. They're not fireable because they've already won so much. And they're competitive all the time. You don't necessarily have this kind of thing working out with every other coach, as all the other SEC coaches can attest to, because there's been just like a revolving door of SEC coaches over the last few years where guys are just getting fired and not even really finishing out their contracts. And Hugh Freeze is talking about, I just think today about what I can do to help these kids. Like, you're not helping the kids, though. Anytime that you do something where you put the school at risk for violation, there are no kids in which you are helping. Furthermore, you have multiple sanctions on you. You cannot play in a postseason of any kind this year. So any games that you play, like, ultimately do not matter, right? You've got vacated victories from the past that might be coming down. Who are you helping? Which kids are you helping, right? Like, if you were really helping the kids, right? Like, Shea Patterson, to me, is such a talented quarterback. If you really cared about Shea Patterson, would you not let Shea Patterson transfer out to a school where Shea Patterson can play for somebody who is going to be competing in games that matter? Right? Would you not let the kids transfer away so they can compete in games that people will actually care about? So they can maybe get a chance to win a high-level bowl game. They can't do any of this stuff because you have brought NCAA sanctions down the school. Right? Like, that's the thing that I least want to hear from college football coaches. I'm trying to help the kids. No, you're not. And it's fine. Just admit that. Don't act like that's what you're trying to do. Lunch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM here on Nooga Radio, noogaradio.com.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Police are investigating Youngstown Road after a 20-year-old shooting victim showed up at the hospital, and they believe he was pierced by hot lead somewhere on the 3800 block of Youngstown Road at 10 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday. Chattanooga cops say the victim drove himself to the hospital. He's not severely injured. A new development in the case of a gang member who was found shot to death lying in his own pool of blood in the Hamilton Inn on Rossville Boulevard. A suspect has been arrested, Malik Phillips, who's 20 years old, charged with criminal homicide and possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. The CPD called in the Marshals Service to help find him. They tracked him down to Walker County. He's going to be extradited. Hamilton County Sheriff's Office is trying to track down a serial windshield smasher after multiple victims have come forward saying something was thrown from a vehicle in the opposing lane that smashed their windshield, and it's happened multiple times on Wednesday on Graysville Road and Udawal-Ringgold Road. Sheriff's Office investigating. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Any showers will diminish through your nighttime, otherwise fair and muggy overnight. Lows into the lower 70s. For Friday, another hot, humid day, 90 to 92. A few widely scattered, mainly afternoon showers and storms, with scattered showers and storms a little more likely. Saturday, highs upper 80s. Chattanooga's best kept secret is at Boyd Speedway. Come see the Crate Late Model Dirt Showdown Race number 4 this Saturday night. Tickets and more at boydspeedway.net or Boyd Speedway on Facebook. And I'm Source Team 12's Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare on Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
I have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Can we take a grain of salt with this whole summer league thing, though? Push with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Like, people see Lonzo Ball performing very well in summer league, and they're going, yeah, that guy's the truth. That guy is playing well, even though we all buried him after the first summer league game. And I just need to point out a very important thing that I think you all know, but I think I should just say it anyway. Summer league is summer league. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any meaning. If a guy performs poorly in summer league, we're not going to remember until he performs poorly in the regular season. And if he does well in summer league, like, we're not going to care if he doesn't have a great regular season. Summer league is where you get an idea of how good a guy is. And so I was very skeptical of Lonzo Ball in his first couple of summer league games because I wasn't sure if he had that sort of mentality that you could turn it on and really get to the basket whenever you need to and all that sort of stuff. And he showed me, I think, that he can do that. I don't think that proves that he's great. I don't think that proves that he is at the top of of the league now. Like he's emerging as a superstar or anything. And I just think that means like, okay, Lonzo's got the ability that he can be great, and here's how his tools will translate. And if you look at it for anything other than that, I think you're going to be severely disappointed. You're not going to gain or gauge how great a guy is from Summer League, right? I just know Lonzo can play. That's all I've learned from Summer League. I don't know how good, like to what extent. I still am very skeptical of him given his playing style. Because to me, like I see him and he's got court vision and he's got awareness and he's a very great passer. But there are a lot of great passers in this league. Like he's not the only, like Steph's a great passer. John Wall's a great passer. You know, I mean, Rondo's not a great passer anymore, but like he shows flashes. But when he was, like, he was incredibly brilliant. And I think like with that, you have to look at it and go, okay, we've had great passers in this league before. I don't think that you just necessarily elevate a team based purely on that. You've got to be able to, in big moments of games, go get yours. You have to, right? I mean, that's why we kill LeBron constantly. You have to be able to, in big moments, go get yours. And I'm still not certain that he can do that when the NBA talent is there. But seeing him do that in Summer League is promising, because while I don't think you can tell if a guy is good in Summer League, you can tell if a guy is bad. You can tell if a guy is struggling in Summer League, he's not going to get better in the regular season. If Summer League is a struggle, he's struggling. That's just what it is. But at the same time, if he's great in Summer League, okay, the competition's lower. So I don't think we're going to put a crown on Lonzo yet, but I'm like, okay, Lonzo can play. I'm a little less worried about him now than I was 24 hours ago. How about that? I'm a little less worried about him at this particular juncture in time. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. And, you know, Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather, they continue their tour. I believe they went to Toronto last night to sell us this farce of a fight, which I know I talk about this every day, but I can't believe that it's picking up steam the way that it's picking up steam, because I think people really want Floyd to lose, right? And I think Floyd, by the way, has proven himself the superior trash talker and the superior fight seller in this. And how I know this is because ultimately Floyd still comes away being the bad guy. Of these two guys, of which Conor's an antagonist and Floyd's an antagonist, of these two guys that love to be the bad guy, these two guys are acting terribly, behaving badly in an attempt to be the worst to sell this fight. And what is happening is ultimately Floyd's still the bad guy. Floyd's still very much the bad guy, right? And I personally get it. Like, Floyd is better at being a bad person. Like, I honestly don't think that Conor McGregor is a bad person. I don't think he's a bad person. I was actually talking to our news director, Russell Stroud, before I came on the air, because we were talking about Conor McGregor. People were wondering if Conor McGregor was a racist, which certainly there is a certain level of Conor McGregor likes to involve race in his talking to make people mad and to sell these fights. But I don't think that Conor McGregor is a racist, and I'll tell you why. Conor McGregor called Nick Diaz a cholo, which is a racial slur. You should not ever say that to anybody. And he called him a few other things too. And I was like, that's pretty terrible. The trash talking was actually surprisingly good, but that's still terrible. He shouldn't have said those things. And then yesterday, Floyd Mayweather was doing some kind of a dance, and Conor McGregor said, "Hey, dance for me, boy, dance for me." And I think a lot of people took that to be racist, which in most contexts actually would be racist, right? But Conor McGregor is Irish, and I think that you have to remember this, because Conor McGregor does not grow up in America with our American sensibilities of why certain things should not be said, right? Like, you don't call somebody a boy. You realize that when you meet somebody on the street and you say, how's it going, man? What's up, man? You realize that actually started in the black community. in large part because black men, grown black men, were called boys by white people in society, especially during the racially tense 60s, and as sort of a way of building up respect amongst each other. When you greet somebody, you don't greet them as boy, you greet them as man, and you do this on purpose, and it's by design. And now we've just sort of absorbed it culturally, which I think is a very good thing. I like it. But we are aware that to call someone a boy, especially someone who is black, a boy, is racially degrading, right? Like it is, because you're basically saying you are childlike and inferior, and it is because of the color of your skin. But Conor McGregor didn't grow up here. That's not in his history, right? Calling someone a boy is degrading. It is supposed to be degrading, but it's not supposed to be, from the Irish perspective, from the European perspective, racially degrading, right? Because Europeans hate each other, right? Like the lines of discrimination in Europe are drawn very differently. And even in the history of America, like when we wouldn't allow Irish people to work, like the lines of discrimination are drawn very differently here than they are in a different country. So I don't want to just open my mouth and cry out that Conor McGregor is a racist if Conor McGregor grew up in a different cultural background than me. And I'll tell you how I know that cultural backgrounds affect the way that you see things. This is a perfect example, right? Because I'm a big fan of Japan. I like Japanese culture. I grew up watching a lot of anime. Too much. Everybody my age grew up watching Dragon Ball Z, at least, right? Everybody my age. I'm 27 years old. Everybody my age, we grew up watching Dragon Ball Z, and that was like our introduction to Japan, and some of us went even further than that. And there are things in Japan that culturally would horrify Americans, right? Like in Japan, there's a vending machine for everything, including the most perverted stuff you have ever thought to imagine that anyone could put into a vending machine in your whole life. Look it up on the internet. I'm not going to tell you what it is. My point is, that's cultural, though. Their culture sees that differently than our culture sees it. Like the lens that you look at all of this stuff through is going to be very, very different. And the lens that Conor is going to look at being degrading, it's going to be very different. He's going to say things that may be racially charged and not understand why they're racially charged in America the way that they are. And I'm not going to sit down and go, oh, Conor McGregor's a racist because he said that. Like, I just can't do it. I don't think that makes any sense. And I don't think that's very fair to judge somebody else viewing our culture from a cultural lens that is different, right? Because I could go and be horribly offensive in another country and not have the foggiest idea why. Right? I could. And it has happened a few times. Where, not to me, but like where someone who is American has gone over to Europe or gone over to Australia and taken this and not understood the cultural sensitivities over there in the same way. Like we see this, by the way, every time Donald Trump goes out for a trip. He goes out for a world trip of some kind, and there's always some foible with Donald Trump, right? And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Donald Trump is a very American guy. He's not just a very American guy. He's a New Yorker. They're possibly the most culturally insensitive group of people that have ever walked the face of this earth. If you are a New Yorker that grew up in New York and spent most of your life in New York, the odds are very much against you going to New York and then going somewhere else and appreciating anywhere else. Like people in New York, my grandma lives in New York. I have family in New York, and I very much I very much have an idea of how it is that New Yorkers think. New Yorkers think that anything beyond the Hudson River is a wasteland. They don't, seriously, like there's nothing beyond New York City. Why would you live beyond New York City? Even people who live in upstate New York, which is also New York, do not get the level of respect from New York City dwellers that they probably should as fellow New Yorkers. right? Like if you want to see a group of people who are just not capable of necessarily understanding things differently culturally, like it's them, okay? Connor's Irish. How is he supposed to understand the nuances of this, right? Connor he's not aware of slavery. He doesn't strike me as the particularly, like he's aware of slavery, but he's not like aware of slavery in like its legacy in America. Why would he be? He doesn't live here. And he doesn't strike me as the particularly like intellectually curious guy that wants to find out either. No, he's not a racist. He's just from somewhere else. I'm very much against crying out for racism where there isn't any. That is something that I am against, and because I think you end up being the boy who cried wolf very often in those situations where you people don't want to hear you anymore. People don't want to hear race this, race that. And I don't have a problem talking about it on this show, right? Like when whoever it was that sprayed the N-word on the side of LeBron's house did that, like for me, it's like, okay, like how bad does that feel if you're LeBron? Like even you can't escape this kind of racism. But I certainly would not say that I want to talk about that every single day if it doesn't come up every single day. Like I'm not looking for race stories every day. It's just when you see it, you've got to call it out. Now, this is not one of those things you got to call out. Like for me, like it's the reverse. Like now I have to make sure like people aren't just lighting a fire where there's no fire. You can't try and see racism in everything, because then like for starters, you don't take into account cultural differences and cultural biases. And then on top of that, like you don't give people credit for like not being racist when they're not racist. Right? Like so you end up working against your own cause. Because you never reward anybody for doing the right thing, and you only come up with wrong things that everybody else is doing. How is that helping anybody? How's that helping anybody? Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240. 92.7 FM. Nooga Radio is the station. I find SEC Media Days to be very, very fascinating. Because I think the Hugh Freeze thing is exactly what everybody always wanted. It is. The idea that Hugh Freeze is this guy that we're not even sure if we like him. We're not even sure if Hugh Freeze is a guy that we like. We know that Ole Miss likes him. And I'm not even going to speak for the fan base. I'm just going to speak for the administration. The administration has decided they're going to stick through him through all of this. And I'm wondering, how long can they do this? How long can they fight through NCAA sanctions? Like, do they really believe in Hugh Freeze that much? Do they believe in Hugh Freeze to the extent that no matter what it is that happens, he's going to be the head coach of that football team? And they have to get him to the point where he can be the head coach of that football team in games that actually matter. They have to get him to that point. Like, they feel like they've doubled down on Hugh Freeze so many times that, and I'm not speaking for anybody in the administration. I'm just giving you my opinion on what I believe the administration to think, which is that, like, it just seems like Hugh Freeze, they've doubled down on him so many times because Hugh Freeze acknowledges himself. He said, like, it's been like 5 years that he's been coming to SEC Media Days and he hasn't been able to talk about players. Well, yes, because it has been about 5 years that you've drawn the attention, at least on some level, of the NC2A. Like, when does this all stop if you're Hugh Freeze? When does it all get better? And I don't know. But it just, this is what the media wants. Like, we like talking about Nick Saban and legacy and greatness, but that's only because we don't have other options. When the opportunity presented itself to tear Hugh Freeze limb from limb, I noticed, by the way, that absolutely nobody hesitated to tear Hugh Freeze limb from limb, right? The CBS Sports headline read Hugh Freeze faced firing squad on Thursday at the 2017 SEC Media Days. And that Ole Miss, I think the administration was in on the sanctions, or not in on the sanctions, but in on the cheating. That's what I think. I think the administration was in on it, and that's the reason why they can't throw Hugh Freeze under the bus, because Hugh Freeze wasn't the only guy doing it, right? Like, I feel like possibly the athletic director knows, because I'm wondering to myself, what does Hugh Freeze have over this? Most people would avoid the extended public relations nightmare that would come with an investigation that has been going on now for almost 4 years. Like, most people would duck and dodge this in every kind of way. And yet, Ole Miss is not just dodging it or not even attempting to not dodge it. Ole Miss is jumping into it, right? Like, there's Houston Nutt does not send out this lawsuit the day before Hugh Freeze goes up to speak if they don't just shovel the blame onto him and act like that would be fine. I think Ole Miss has been cheating. I think they know that they've been cheating. They can't afford to let Hugh Freeze go because they've involved him very heavily in it. And they're just trying to ride it out. And they're not doing a very good job of writing it out. And they're cheating. They've been very sloppy with it. Right? Like, how does somebody get a text message between your coach and your player? Right? How does that happen? Because here's what the allegations are. Here's what the allegations are. The allegations are that the program paid out to prospects at least $20,000 in cash and extra benefits, and that Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss are charged with the lack of institutional control because he should have known what was going on. There's no way that $20,000 passes between coaches and players and nobody knows and nobody has a clue. Right? It's not possible. If something happens, like the reason why they pay leaders lots of money, because I argue this a lot. There are some jobs in which being in a leadership position is not that much harder than being anybody else. Right? And I've had a few bosses tell me this, and I don't know if they were just placating me and trying to be, part of the team or whatever, but they're like, being the boss in some situations is really not that hard. Right? But the reason why you get paid more is because if something were to go wrong, if something were to mess up, it falls back on you. You're ultimately responsible. And Hugh Freeze is basically saying something along the lines of, I didn't know any of this was happening. None of this whatsoever. Right? He came out, started SEC Media Days with a prepared statement that said, hey, look, don't talk to me about this. I don't want to talk about this. Talk to the lawyers. No, man, we're going to talk to you about it because you're the head coach of the football team, and allegedly $20,000 in benefits passed between your coaches and your players. $20,000 in cash? Cash. I mean, yeah, we're going to ask you about it. We're going to ask you lots of things about it. And you better have answers, man. You better have answers. And Hugh Freeze is filled with a lot of things, a lot of frustration, and apparently a lot of lack of understanding. He is filled with very few answers, however, and this is not going to play well, right? Like, it didn't play well today, but as we get closer and closer to the college football season in which you don't have anything to talk about, nothing at all. You think this is going to play well? I don't think this is going to play well. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. EJ Pelton Company, 332-3339.
The Homeschool Expo is just ahead. It's the biggest education event of the year. It's going to be Saturday, July 21st and 22nd. There's going to be dozens of workshops. There's going to be 70 exhibitors. There's going to be math, writing, software, books, colleges, history, free personal advice. You name it, we've got it. Go to cstea.org to learn more. That's CSTHEA.org.
This is Thomas DeMoss with Keller Williams Realty. I am a realtor in Chattanooga. We list and sell homes, work with buyers, work with home sellers. I have been involved in real estate for over 10 years. My background is as a real estate investor. That is what I bring to the table, is that real estate investor mindset. My job is to help you sell your house for the most money, employing the best marketing strategy and walking you through what can be a rather stressful process. So we are encouraging people who are on the fence or even thought about selling their house to give us a call. There's no obligation. We're just here to kind of have a conversation, let people know what the process is like, what the market is like, what values they can expect to receive. We work with buyers as well. I also have a buyer's agent that works exclusively with my buyers because we want to give our clients as much attention as we can. My cell phone number is 423-364-0028. Our website is northriverpropertygroup.com. That's northriverpropertygroup.com. We'd love for you guys to call us.
I've been a customer at S&S 14 years. It's way out of my way, but I'm well treated. I believe what I'm told. Price is reasonable. David Tulis here. Make an S&S appointment today. This week, get $50 off any 30,000-mile service or timing belt repair. And get a free combat knife as a gift. S&S Auto Repair specializes in Toyota, Lexus, Honda, Acura, Scion, Nissan, and Infiniti. 6-time winner of Best of the Best Award in the Times Free Press. 855-3436. SSAutorepair.net. 855-3436.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field lines failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
Are you looking for a gospel-oriented, covenantal, family-friendly Reformed church? Dayton Reformed Presbyterian Church is a body of Christ-centered believers gathering for worship on the Lord's Day from around southeastern Tennessee. Our congregation is reformational in its outlook. It has a traditional worship service regulated by the Word of God. Prayer, singing the Psalms, reading God's holy Word, teaching, preaching the Bible, the administration of the sacrament. Dayton Reformed Pres, committed to the authority of the Bible as the inerrant, infallible Word of God. As Westminster Confession of Faith directs every Christian, we aim to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. As the Reformed Church, our purpose is teaching and preaching the gospel, making and training disciples of Jesus Christ, taking dominion for our Lord's sake by applying God's holy and perfect law to every area of life. We would be honored to have you join us for worship. Dayton Reformed Presbyterian. This Sunday morning at 11 at Dayton Community Chapel, 184 Mulberry Avenue, Dayton. Click DaytonRPC.org. Click DaytonRPC.org. 184 Mulberry Avenue, Dayton.
My name is Trevor Atchley. I'm an attorney here with the law firm McCoon, Williams, Atchley, and Stanley. We have a show on Nooga Radio called Legal Bites, where we discuss legal topics of interest to our listeners: estate planning, business formation, and business transactions. Legal Bites, 11 a.m. on Wednesday.
The Homeschool Expo is just ahead. It's the biggest education event of the year. It's going to be Saturday, July 21st and 22nd. There's going to be dozens of workshops. There's going to be 70 exhibitors. There's going to be math, writing, software, books, colleges, history, free personal advice. You name it, we've got it. Go to cstea.org to learn more. That's csthea.org.
Does your business have enough clients? Are you confused about how to stand out in today's saturated social media market? Do you feel lost trying to navigate the maze of marketing channels which are necessary in today's marketplace? Are you fed up with spending your time and money on employees who don't perform and marketing strategies that don't produce? Then you need Cindy's Choice. Cindy will solve your marketing problems with her innovative shared marketing management concept, that will allow your business to have the benefits of a full-time employee that is actually out building relationships in the community on behalf of your brand. Cindy's low monthly rate includes advertising, employee management, public relations, and creative marketing strategies that produce. Cindy can bring this all to you at a rate lower than most advertising campaigns and for much less than the cost of hiring a marketing employee. Cindy's Choice is your trusted source, and Cindy will manage it all for you.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I focus on the prospects so you can focus on the projects. Call me at 423-661-4445. That's 423-661-4445. So you can become Cindy's Choice.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree? Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio. The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
WBLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga,
WSDT Saudi Daisy Chattanooga.
Defending Donald Trump Jr. for his meeting with a Russian attorney.
I think it's a meeting that most people in politics probably would have taken.
Critiquing the latest GOP healthcare replacement package.
This is an insurance bailout on steroids.
This is the CBS World News Roundup, late edition. I'm Dave Barrett. A late spring sit-down last year involving Donald Trump Jr., a lawyer from Russia, and what's called political opposition research. Today, when President Trump spoke at a Paris news conference, the issue was front and center. CBS's Steve Dorsey with details.
My son is a wonderful young man.
The president played defense again for Donald Trump Jr. during a press conference alongside French President Emmanuel Macron. Revelations about the meeting held more than a year ago have distracted from the president's trip.
Nothing happened from the meeting. Zero happened from the meeting.
France is a key ally, with Macron using his FaceTime with President Trump to encourage him to stick with the Paris Climate Accord, with Mr. Trump saying, quote, something could happen on the deal from which he plans to withdraw the U.S.
CBS News political director and Face the Nation host John Dickerson as for that meeting in June of last year involving President Trump's oldest son.
In campaigns, absolutely, opposition research happens. What's different in this case was an offer from the Russian government. The previous nominee of the Republican Party said the Russians were America's #1 global threat.
Tonight, the president and France's Emmanuel Macron are dining at the Eiffel Tower. Tomorrow, a huge Bastille Day celebration. 4 men were missing in Pennsylvania's Bucks County. Then, remains of one person were identified and body parts from several other people were discovered on a farm north of Philadelphia. And word this afternoon that suspect Cosmo DiNardo has confessed. His attorney is Paul Lang.
He admitted to being part of or actually committing murder, and he gave the locations for all 4.
DiNardo was taken into custody.
What do you have to say to these families, Cosmo? Anything to say? Even a sympathy? Even you're sorry? I'm sorry.
He will plead guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder, and for confessing, prosecutors agreed not to press for the death penalty. Looking over the latest version of the Senate health care replacement plan, Kentucky's Rand Paul had a critique.
I think it's worse. I mean, the old version repealed most of the Obamacare taxes. This repeals about half the Obamacare taxes.
And says CBS's Nancy Cordes.
The new bill reinstates those taxes to help pay for $45 billion in new opioid funding. But it does not reverse the first bill's deep cuts to Medicaid, the big sticking point for moderates like Ohio's Rob Portman. The only Republican who went from no to yes today was Ted Cruz of Texas, who got a provision inserted allowing insurers to offer low-cost, bare-bones plans.
A vote on this could come next week. Wall Street, the Dow with a record high again after a gain of 19. Now this.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans.
Every day people ask me, Jay, did I miss out? Have the rates gone up? The answer is no. Rates are still low, and it's a perfect time to refinance your home, especially if your mortgage rate is higher than 4.25%. If you'd like to lower your interest rate and save thousands of dollars in interest without starting over on a new 30-year loan, a Quicken Loans Yorgage is what you're looking for. With our exclusive Yorgage, you can choose a term that works best for you, anywhere from 8 to 30 years. The rate today on an 8-year Yorgage is 3.25%. APR 3.75%. For 7 years in a row now, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation for customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. And for the 3rd year in a row, they've also ranked us highest in the nation for mortgage servicing. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com. That's 800-QUICKEN.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
Some doctors are among the 400-plus arrested with allegations of fraud at a number of medical centers. Attorney General Jeff Sessions.
Among those defendants announced today, 120 have been charged with opioid-related crimes, making this also the largest opioid-related fraud takedown in American history.
Do you get a Social Security check come 2018?
Payments next year will increase by about 2.2%, about $28 a month for the average recipient. Webster Phillips with the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare says trust funds, though, will still run out in 2034 if Congress doesn't act.
It's not easy. It's never been easy. It certainly requires a legislative body that's willing to work together. They have to work across the aisle with each other.
But Phillips says he's confident Congress will act. Bill Rakoff, CBS News, Washington.
You're listening to the CBS World News.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's News Now.
Police are investigating Youngstown Road after a 20-year-old shooting victim showed up at the hospital, and they believe he was pierced by hot lead somewhere on the 3800 block of Youngstown Road at 10 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday. Chattanooga cops say the victim drove himself to the hospital. He's not severely injured. A new development in the case of a gang member who was found shot to death lying in his own pool of blood in the Hamilton Inn on Rossville Boulevard. A suspect has been arrested, Malik Phillips, who's 20 years old, charged with criminal homicide and possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. The CPD called in the Marshal's Service to help find him. They tracked him down to Walker County. He's going to be extradited. Hamilton County Sheriff's Office is trying to track down a serial windshield smasher after multiple victims have come forward saying something was thrown from a vehicle in the opposing lane that smashed their windshield, and it's happened multiple times on Wednesday on Graysville Road and Oodawal-Ringgold Road. Sheriff's Office investigating. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Any showers will diminish through your nighttime, otherwise fair and muggy overnight. Lows into the lower 70s. For Friday, another hot, humid day, 90 to 92. A few widely scattered, mainly afternoon showers and storms, with scattered showers and storms a little more likely. Saturday, highs upper 80s. Chattanooga's best kept secret is at Boyd Speedway. Come see the Crate Late Model Dirt Showdown Race number 4 this Saturday night. Tickets and more at BoydSpeedway.net or Boyd Speedway on Facebook. And I'm Source Team 12's Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
He stole out so much cash, such a huge mountain of cash, that he's become a national star. Rick Davis. You know the story. Cash, 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 and more cash. People can't believe it. They want to see it. And now Rick Davis has a new TV show. National TV, USA and Canada. He's got the gold and silver, diamonds and rings. You get dizzy just thinking about it. Rick's selling. Rick's buying. Cash, 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 and more cash. And now a mountain of cash catching the Hollywood spotlight. You know where it is. Brainerd Road. Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. Cash, 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 and national TV cash. That's really big. Everyone wants to see it. Money flying out the door. Rick Davis is America's jeweler. It's better than Hollywood. It's right here. Cash, 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 and more cash. Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. Brainerd Road.
You love me. You really love me.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio.
Hello, Chattanooga. You're listening to AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Watch with Keon Rose is the show. Nooga Radio, that's the station. NoogaRadio.com, that's the website. You can get access to all of our social media. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. You can find me on Twitter, by the way. My handle is @SportsCloud. I tweet things occasionally. Actually, I feel like I'm acting more like the president. I tweet in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night. All of my sports hot takes come out in the middle of the night. And I understand why too. There's a inhibition, I think, that just drops in the middle of the night, which is not something that I experience frequently. In large part because I don't drink. Like I don't do anything that would lower my inhibitions naturally. So I think just being awake at night is the thing that does it for me. Clutch with Keon Rose at AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. You know who I wish I were right now? I wish I were Dana White. Dana White. I have two of these. I have one that I wish I were Dana White, and then I have somebody that I wish I was not. Right now I wish I were Dana White. Dana White has a very cool job, which is that he gets to follow around Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor and watch them shout at each other in front of large crowds and almost fight, but not really, because everybody knows that the real fight has to happen. And like no one is enjoying their life right now more than him, because Dana White is a guy that grew up a boxing fan. He grew up a boxing fan and is very well knowledgeable about the history of the sport, watched all the big fights in the 90s, including all the Tyson fights. And you know, he's a guy, he understands combat sports in and out, right? He's the guy that runs the UFC. So he understands both sports incredibly well. And he is having the time of his life, because I can't imagine that there's anything as far as sports media involved more fun than that. And I say that knowing full well that SEC Media Days, that's a riot. And that everybody that I've ever talked to, and I've talked to a few people that are, you know, higher up in the media world than me, that have gone to Super Bowl parties and gone to the Super Bowl week, the week leading up to the Super Bowl. And they just have a blast, and it's so much fun, and the atmosphere is crazy. That I think this tops even that. Like, this fight is the biggest spectacle in the last 10 years, especially if you're going to go with combat sports. It is the biggest spectacle, which is a shame, really, because the fight itself isn't going to be worth anything. But the buildup is so fun, and I'm telling you right now, like, if you're not following this buildup, if you're not following the press conferences, which Showtime Sports is putting on YouTube for free, yes, they're putting the entire hour and a half of guys sitting around talking about stuff. So just skip to the part where Floyd and Conor yell at each other, because that's the part that you really want to see. But it's been very interesting. It's been hilarious. Conor's got a great sense of humor. Floyd is a mean villain guy, and that's exactly what you want. And I'm telling you, the giant spectacle that you're going to pay on pay-per-view to see this fight, don't do it. The fight's not worth it. And the spectacle that you're looking for, this is it, right? Like, this is it, and it's free. You already don't have to pay for this. Like, I'm trying to warn you. I feel like I am the guy walking around in the streets. I'm the crazy old guy with the grizzled beard walking around the streets of New York City with a giant sign that says the end is nigh. And nobody's going to listen to me until, like, we get to the end of the movie. And then, of course, like, the end is actually nigh. And I don't know, like, Transformers are falling out of the sky or whatever. Like, that's where I'm at. I'm telling you, I'm right about this. This fight is worthless to you. You're not going to be watching a good fight. I'm not paying for this. You shouldn't pay for this either. If you do, you're a sucker. I'm letting you know in advance. If you want the spectacle, because the spectacle I do think is actually very entertaining, it's already happening. It's already happening, right? They were in Los Angeles yesterday. They're in Toronto. Let's check that. They were in Los Angeles 2 days ago. They were in Toronto yesterday. And They're going to be in, I don't know, some other city today. And those of us who are fight fans have to follow this whole thing. We have to follow all of it. And it's crazy. It's been nothing short of crazy. And the person who is closest to it, the man standing in the middle of all of this, is Dana White. And of course, there is a winner and loser in this fight, and it's not Floyd and it's not Conor. I think Floyd will win the fight in the ring, but Conor's going to walk away with more money than he's ever gotten for a fight in his entire life. Floyd will walk away with even more money, and I suppose he can use that at that point then to pay the IRS or whatever it is that he's got to do now. And we've got all of that going on, and everybody's making money. The combat sport media is making money. Everybody's doing great. Well, mostly everybody's doing great, right? Clutch with Keon Rose at AM 1240 and 92.7 FM talking about the Conor and Floyd fight. Mostly everybody in the combat sport media is doing well, but Ariel Helwani is a guy that, like, I don't know what it is with the UFC, man. They don't like him anymore. Ariel Helwani is like one of the best guys that covers the UFC, and like they take away his credentials. They tell him that he can't come to certain press events. He's probably one of the more honest reporters of the UFC that there is. And like, they just jerk that guy around. And I don't know. They took away his credentials to follow all of this stuff. And I'm like, man, all he's done is represent the sport properly. But yeah, like everybody besides Ariel Helwani is having a great time. And there's a winner in this fight. There's a loser. And the loser is you if you pay for it. And the winner is Conor and Floyd, who are just going to get paid regardless of result, whether or not they win or lose. They just simply have to show up. They just have to arrive. And that'll be it, you know? And that to me is insane. I mean, it's absolutely insane that they're doing well. I think Conor McGregor said yesterday, he said, we're all eating. We're all eating. That's my favorite quote from this whole thing so far is somebody asked him, like, what does this mean for combat sports? Is this good for boxing? Is this good for the UFC? Who is this better for? And he's like, it's good for everybody, man. We're all eating. Everybody's busy. Everybody's got work. I mean, this is it. And the spectacle is going to pay off handsomely. And it really doesn't matter. Like HBO, or is it HBO? No, it's Showtime. Showtime's going to lose money on this if you don't buy the fight. But they've already signed the contracts. So those guys are going to get paid whether or not you watch. Those guys are going to get paid whether or not they win. You tell me who the actual winner of this fight is. Like, they're just going to get paid, right? Conor and Floyd simply have to arrive in Las Vegas, walk into that ring, and that's it. That's it. They walk into the ring, they're paid. I mean, if this doesn't feel like a farce to you, then what is? Then what is? And I only say this because Floyd Mayweather, we have accused Floyd Mayweather our entire time here with him as the pound for pound best boxer in the world. We have accused Floyd Mayweather of ducking guys and only fighting in fights that he knows that he can win. That Floyd doesn't fight anybody in their prime, right? Like, he fights Canelo before Canelo is prime Canelo. He fights De La Hoya after De La Hoya is prime De La Hoya. He fights Manny when Manny's old. Like, the only people he's really fought in his prime, and he nearly lost both of those fights, I think, is Marcus Maidana and Zab Judah. That's it. That's it. So a guy that we know to take fights that he knows he can win takes a fight against Conor McGregor, and we're legitimately giving Conor McGregor a chance. And I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. If I had to choose somebody in the world to be right now, I'd choose to be Dana White. If I had to choose somebody in the world not to be right now, it would be Sammy Sosa, because I don't understand what's going on with Sammy Sosa. Sammy Sosa, one of the great baseball players of my childhood, right? I remember Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire in the 90s in the home run race. And it was amazing. And we would tune into SportsCenter every night and see who's moved ahead in this thing. Is it McGwire? Is it Sosa? It was exciting. That's the most excitement I've ever had as a baseball fan. It has not been topped in my entire life. And I hope I get the chance to see that again, because we're entering a world where, like, Aaron Judge is a guy that exists. So that could happen. But I do say that to say that Sammy Sosa was a baseball player that I really liked, like one of my favorite baseball players growing up, right after Ken Griffey. Ken Griffey was every kid's favorite baseball player growing up, right? Like, Ken Griffey was awesome. Like when you were a kid, Ken Griffey was in all the cartoons, and he was always on Sports Illustrated for kids. Like he was always on the cover of the magazine. Ken Griffey Jr. was my childhood, but Sammy Sosa was like right there. And it's weird to see where Sammy Sosa has gone with this, because Sammy Sosa is a guy, he is Dominican, and he's got very dark skin, right? You know, as a result of the slave trade, essentially, bringing Africans over to the Caribbean. Sammy Sosa's got very dark skin, or had very dark skin, and he has been progressively lightening his skin over the past decade. And I saw a picture of Sammy Sosa yesterday, and the entire internet, like Twitter, was just freaking out about Sammy Sosa, because a lot of us saw this picture of Sammy Sosa for the first time in ages, and Sammy Sosa has bleached his skin to unrecognizability. He does not look like the same guy. Like, he's got all the same features. You recognize Sammy Sosa's ears and nose and stuff as Sammy Sosa's, but on skin that's not his, right? I've got pretty dark skin. I'm pretty dark skinned. Sammy Sosa was as dark skinned as I was, but Sammy Sosa is no longer that color. He's white, but like not white in the way that when we say a white person is white, they're white, because really, like, white people aren't white. Nobody's white, right? Like when you say someone's white, what do you mean? They're like a sheet of paper white? No one's white. And when you say a black person's black, like, what do you like? No one's black. Right, we're not even describing the races properly. If we're gonna make race a giant issue, you at least describe it properly. But Sammy Sosa's white, and I don't mean in like the description of race. I mean Sammy Sosa's skin is paper white, like he's bleached it beyond recognition. And I don't know what's going on in Sammy Sosa's head. He's bordering on so white he's actually pink again. It's weird. It's a strange thing to see. And the person I least want to be is Sammy Sosa, because I don't know if it's a self-loathing thing, like if Sammy Sosa just did not like the way that he looked and decided, I have to go through these giant lengths to change it. I don't know. But I remember that he did start bleaching his skin 6 or 7 years ago. I remember seeing the story come up. And I remember that Sammy Sosa said, this is not permanent. This is not what this is supposed to look like. This is a mistake. I did go to have my skin lightened, but they went too far, which the idea of lightening your skin is still bizarre to me and alien in a very, very distinct way. But I'm like, okay, I mean, rich people do crazy stuff all the time. My idea of what it is that rich people decide to do on a given day, I have no idea. I just see them do strange stuff and go, okay, well, I guess that's just what it is when you have money. You just got to figure out stuff to spend it on. So if Sammy Sosa wants to lighten his skin, more power to him, go on ahead. But he said, that's a mistake. It wasn't supposed to come out that way. And then, I don't know, now, 7 years later, 7 years after that story comes out, Sammy Sosa is even whiter now than he was then. And this is a guy, a very dark complexion, and good-looking guy, I thought in the 90s. And now Sammy Sosa looks like some kind of freak show. It's like you put on clown makeup on him, and the only thing he's missing is a giant rubber nose. And it's weird to see this happen. And I don't know how it happens. Like, what happens to you mentally to get you to the point where you just hate your own skin so much, you're like, I'm going to change it. Right? Because I mean, I talk about race fairly frequently in terms of what it is to be black in America, but I don't hate my skin. I'm fine with who I am. I like who I am. I wouldn't want to lighten my skin color in large part because that would look weird. Right? Everybody who knew me previously would freak out. Except Sammy Sosa is famous, because he's one of the great hitters in baseball history. And he's causing a giant freak out. Twitter doesn't know what to do. Nobody knows what to do. Right? Like, what's the next step of this? Where do we take this? Because I don't know. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Here's what I think about the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have found their quarterback, right? They found Dak Prescott. Sure. Did they find their quarterback on purpose? No. But Dak Prescott can ball, right? And I'm very skeptical about how good Dak Prescott can actually be. Like, I actually do have some part of me that's like, that what Dak Prescott was last year, it's very possible that he does not get much better than that. But he doesn't have to be much better than that with that offensive line and with Ezekiel Elliott and the way that that defense is starting to come together. He really doesn't have to. And in the NFC East, it is a tough division. He's going to go against he's going to get the number one team schedule. So I'm interested in seeing how Dak Prescott steps up and improves. He's a very smart young guy, and he's a very, very good quarterback. And so I'm rooting against him entirely because he's a Dallas Cowboy, and that's pretty much it. I hate the Cowboys. But I think about the Cowboys, and I think we've always thought of the Cowboys as this dysfunctional organization. And one of the things about their dysfunction is the fact that we never really know what their situation is at quarterback. We like the entire time that Tony Romo was there, Tony Romo was very easy to criticize because he would have some of the most dreadful endings to games that you've ever seen in your life, that it actually erased the fact that during his career, he was one of the most clutch quarterbacks that played. He would have roller coaster seasons where they would start losing, and then he would show up somewhere halfway through the season, and the Cowboys would be 8-8, 9-7, miss the playoffs, or just barely get in and not really go very far. And part of it had to do with the fact that Tony Romo was the best player on a bad Cowboys team for a very long time. So there was always going to be some level of quarterback controversy with Romo because I think we love to hate him very much. And he was very injury prone. So the idea that Tony Romo could be knocked out of the game and that anybody could show up and take his spot was not just a joke. It was a legitimate threat that could actually happen until one day it did with Dak Prescott. But now that Dak Prescott has entrenched himself as the starter, looked like a very good football player, has a bright future ahead of him, and this team is only getting better, we don't actually have a quarterback controversy in Dallas anymore. And I feel like we don't know what to do with that. We don't know how to live in a world where the Cowboys have stability. Because it's been so long. It's been over 20 years. And I think that the same thing has happened with the Lakers, where the Lakers have been so bad, basically since the last time Phil Jackson was coaching there, that they've been dreadful. We're actually, the idea that the Lakers could be stable and good, we're not used to that, so we're just taking it out on Lonzo. I think that there is some level of that as well. And we might possibly at some point soon turn on Aaron Judge, because the Yankees have been bad. And you look at these three pillars of like sports in America, like those are the three traditional powers across our major sports. And they've been awful, all three of them. The Yankees have been making a comeback, and they've been lurking in the AL East. But like it's one of those things where they haven't been truly, truly competitive. Like, you haven't looked at the New York Yankees and thought, oh yeah, they're a contender for a very long time. And now they're there lurking with the Red Sox lurking. I'm trying to see what it takes to pass up the Jays. But we're not used to these teams being dominant in their recent history. And I think Dallas has had the longest stretch of just, what the bleep are you doing, really? And I think we're not used to this idea that the Cowboys have stability. And so people were asking Tony Romo, like, what are the chances that he'll come back and suit up if Dak Prescott gets hurt? Like, we're so used to them having some kind of quarterback controversy and some kind of quarterback injury that, like, we have to make one up out of thin air just to have one, which is insane. Like, we have to make one up just to have one. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. When would we let this go? Dak is the starter. Dak is not injury prone. Dak is actually playing a very healthy style of football. It'll probably last a very long time. What are we doing? What are we doing? Really? Are we seriously trying to create some kind of dramatic storyline where Tony Romo comes out of the broadcast booth and returns to Dallas? You couldn't make that up in a comic book. That storyline would be absurd for Hollywood. What are we doing? Like, we're just so not used to the idea that the Dallas Cowboys have stability of any kind whatsoever, that we are making this up. And Tony Romo answered, I'm done playing, which I think is a good, strong, concise answer. But here's the thing that I've learned about like the modern day sports media, which is that like guys can say whatever it is that they want. When we decide what the narrative is, that's what the narrative is, right? And my only example of this that really stands strong is that we've created this narrative about the Washington Wizards, which is a team that none of you care about, so I won't delve too far into it. That John Wall and Bradley Beal, the two best players on the team, hate each other. And despite the fact that both guys have said we actually don't hate each other, and that players on the team are like they actually don't hate each other, and that former players on the team with nothing to lose have said they actually don't hate each other, we've decided that they hate each other. That's the narrative. And we're sticking with it. And so the narrative in Dallas has always got to be there's something up at quarterback. There's just got to be something. And despite the fact that Tony Romo has said, I'm done playing, and that Dak Prescott has been nothing but impressive as the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, despite all of these things, no, we're still going to enter some kind of world where Dallas has a quarterback problem where it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Why would you ask that question? What are the odds that it could happen? There are no odds. And even if there were odds, why would he admit that, right? This is a guy that gracefully stepped away from being the leader of that team when it was apparent that he lost it. Why would he create that havoc after he left? It doesn't make any sense. What you're saying, Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM here on Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news. Now,
police are investigating Youngstown Road after a 20-year-old shooting victim showed up at the hospital, and they believe he was pierced by hot lead somewhere on the 3800 block of Youngstown Road at 10 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday. Chattanooga cops say the victim drove himself to the hospital. He's not severely injured. A new development in the case of a gang member who was found shot to death lying in his own pool of blood in the Hamilton Inn on Rossville Boulevard. A suspect has been arrested. Malik Phillips, who's 20 years old, charged with criminal homicide and possession of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony. The CPD called in the Marshals Service to help find him. They tracked him down to Walker County. He's going to be extradited. Hamilton County Sheriff's Office is trying to track down a serial windshield smasher after multiple victims have come forward saying something was thrown from a vehicle in the opposing lane that smashed their windshield, and it's happened multiple times on Wednesday on Graysville Road and Udawal-Ringgold Road. Sheriff's Office investigating. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Any showers will diminish through your nighttime, otherwise fair and muggy overnight. Lows into the lower 70s. For Friday, another hot, humid day, 90 to 92. A few widely scattered, mainly afternoon showers and storms, with scattered showers and storms a little more likely. Saturday, highs upper 80s. Chattanooga's best kept secret is at Boyd Speedway. Come see the Crate Late Model Dirt Showdown Race #4 this Saturday night. Tickets and more at BoydSpeedway.net or Boyd Speedway on Facebook. And I'm Source 12's Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
I have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
I think Game of Thrones is getting too popular. I really like the show, but when you have the show itself, when you have spin-offs, like they have the Game of Zones basketball show on Bleacher Report, which is kind of funny sometimes, but not always. When you have Game of Thrones podcasts where there's like, it's a reaction podcast to every single episode, when there are TV shows about it. And I actually feel this way about The Walking Dead as well. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM, which is another show that people like. I'm here to hate on all the things that you like, by the way. I don't know if you noticed, but that's my purpose in life. When you have a show that reacts to the show, things have gone too far. I never wanted to watch that show that they had with Breaking Bad, like that came on after Breaking Bad, where it's like, yeah, now we're going to talk to you about the thing that you just watched. I'm not an idiot. I know what I just watched, right? Like, and if I've been watching the show all along, I don't need another person to sit down and tell me about the thing I just watched. The last time I needed somebody to tell me about the thing I just watched was when I was in high school and they had us reading Shakespeare, and I just didn't understand what I was reading, right? Like, I read Romeo and Juliet, and like, you can get Shakespeare if you read Shakespeare for a little bit, and then you start to get into the language and you're like, okay, I understand what this is, and it's not so clunky to me anymore because nobody talks like that. But it helped to have the Spark Notes, is all I'm saying. That I had the Spark Notes in school, and I was able to look at it and go, oh, look at this. I'm not crazy. I just didn't understand what this was. I don't need that for a TV show, in large part because TV shows are easier to understand, and because TV shows are written in the version of English that I speak in my modern day English tongue. So I don't need to worry about all this other stuff. Right? I don't need to. It's just insane. Yeah, I don't need a reaction show to a TV show. I just watch the show. And like, there's so many different ways to watch the stuff now. Like, they've got the HBO Go app and everything. Like, if you watch the show and you didn't get it, you can watch it again. You can go back and see stuff that didn't make sense. Like, I don't hate, but like, it's just weird when you have like these cultural phenomenon shows and then everybody's trying to cash in on the show, right? Like, that's the thing about Game of Thrones that stinks. That's the thing about The Walking Dead that stinks. That's the thing that was about Lost back in, 2005 or 6 when Lost peaked or whatever. Like, that's the thing about that stank as well. It was just like everybody was trying to cash in on this thing that we all liked. Why don't you just like it? What would happen if you just watched the thing? Would it be so bad? Would that be the worst thing ever if you just watched it? Anyway, Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Today, Thursday, the last day of SEC Media Days in Hoover, Alabama. Commissioner Greg Sankey did have some discussions about whether or not to move SEC Media Days from Hoover, Alabama, a place that is not exciting because it is Hoover, Alabama. And one of the interesting ideas that came up at SEC Media Days was, man, what if Will Muschamp really got South Carolina going? What if Will Muschamp turned South Carolina into the kind of team that could win the East? Because there is no clear-cut team that can win the East, right? I think it's going to be Georgia, and I think it's going to be Georgia because of Jacob Eason. I really like him a lot. I think if he could get some of his passes to actually drop into receivers' hands, because at the moment Jacob Eason throws ducks occasionally, and I'm not a huge fan of those. But when he throws an accurate pass, I mean, it's the most beautiful thing in college football. It is. But South Carolina's got an opportunity to spoil some things for a lot of people in the SEC East, because Tennessee, who knows what you're going to expect out of Tennessee? I have no idea, right? And they spoiled Tennessee's year last year. And I don't know what you're going to expect out of Tennessee. Vegas has them at 7.5. The way Butch Jones talks, he worries me to the point where I'm like, Tennessee might win 7 games, maybe 6. Even though I believe there's talent on that roster and that schedule is weak enough that Tennessee ought to win 8. Right? So they've got 8-win talent, but I don't know what that means in terms of actually scaling that into a victory. or into victories that mean anything. Like that doesn't, I don't know what that means. That doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't move the needle for me. Okay, they've got 8-win talent and they've got an 8-win schedule scaled with the talent that they have. That doesn't mean anything when Butch Jones is your coach. Okay, because they had like 10-win talent last year and they won 9 games. So I don't know what to tell you. I have no idea what that means. But I will say this. If South Carolina's defense can catch up to its offense, because Jake Bentley surprised us all last year, and like they're not taking a step backwards offensively, if their defense can catch up to their offense, it stands to reason that South Carolina could actually be a very potent football team next year and could possibly win the East, which is as wide open a division in college sports as there is. And I mean like every division, all of them, right? I mean both divisions of the ACC, both divisions of the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10, both divisions, right? Like I don't know that there's a division more wide open than the SEC East. Anybody could win it. Like Tennessee could actually surprise us all and win it. Georgia could win it. Florida, Malik Zaire, added him. They could win it. South Carolina could win it. They could. It's not as likely a proposition, but certainly they're the wild card in all of this. They're the team that could win just enough games to just kind of work everybody over. They could win just enough games to make this very uncomfortable for everybody. And I think that'd be very cool. I'd be very interested in seeing that play out. Now, I still think Georgia wins it. I mean, I've waffled on it. I waffle between Georgia and Florida on this, but I legitimately think that Georgia's way too talented to not go and win this. And I think that Kirby Smart will feel enough of the pressure that he's not going to take lightly any of these games. And I just think that like Georgia's got a whole lot more to play for than everybody else, because Florida, I still think that Felipe Franks is going to be their guy of the future. And I just think that like that's when Florida's really going to come on. That's when Florida's going to be truly scary, is if Felipe Franks can come into his own. And I don't mind the idea of starting Malik Zaire this season as long as you can start him. If he stays healthy the whole season, then he's the quarterback the whole season. And if he gets injured, then you get to go with Franks. But I think if you've got Felipe Franks, he to me is a guy that in the future is going to be truly scary. He's just got a lot of arm talent and a lot of arm strength, and the closest thing to a truly powerful quarterback that Florida's had the entire time that Jim McElwain has been there. I just think next year, Jacob Eason, he's more polished. You've got Sonny Michel. You've got Nick Chubb. There's no good reason why Georgia doesn't win the East and compete for a title in Atlanta against Alabama, an Alabama team that, quite frankly, and I know we say this every year, and we are wrong every single year, but this is the weakest Alabama team that we have seen in a while, at least on the defensive side of the ball. They just lost a ton of talent to the NFL. Now, we should learn our lesson that really doesn't mean anything with Alabama, but I don't know how else to say it, okay? I'm going to keep hitting my head against that wall until I sufficiently learn that lesson. I actually think this Alabama team will be weaker than the one from last year, which is to say that that's still going to be an incredibly strong football team, but you've got a better chance of beating this team than you did beating last year's team. Take that for what you will. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. So here's the thing. Hugh Freeze is in trouble for a number of reasons. Hugh Freeze is in trouble because of the NCAA violations and sanctions. But Hugh Freeze is also in trouble because of the lawsuit filed Wednesday by a high-powered Arkansas attorney on behalf of Houston Nutt that alleges that Hugh Freeze orchestrated a gigantic media campaign to spread falsehoods about former head coach Houston Nutt, and that there are text messages and emails that would appear to corroborate Houston Nutt's story is not helpful. Right? Apparently, here's some of the allegations, right? That the school administrators made calls to 9 journalists. To 9 journalists. The school's first notice of allegations had yet to be released in January 2016. And as Nutt's attorney Thomas Mars points out, there are only 2 groups of people that could have released the information on it. It's Ole Miss or it's the NCAA. And the NCAA has not known to be very leaky because it's in their advantage to not leak. It's in their distinct advantage for everybody working for them to not leak. But it's not in Ole Miss's advantage to not leak. In fact, Ole Miss leaking works in advantage for Ole Miss. And which is what they did. They leaked a lot of these violations, and then they pinned it on Houston Nutt and said that it was all his fault. And they leaked this information before anyone else was available to be privy to it, which means it could only have been them, right? Like a lot of this stuff, these allegations are starting to add up to something that's looking awful factual. Right? And this is actually itself another violation. The NCAA does not want you to leak information to the media. And so they have a rule called the cooperative principle, which is put in place to prevent media leaks and discussion of confidential case matters. So if Ole Miss did this, if Ole Miss leaked the information on Houston Nutt to get him in trouble and make it seem like all of the violations were in fact his fault, but they leaked violations that the NCAA had not released information for yet, then that means that they are in violation of yet another NCAA statute. And I'm sorry, at some point, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a flipping duck. If it looks like a cheater and it walks like a cheater, it's a cheater. And Ole Miss is a school that, quite frankly, ought to let its players just go wherever they want to play, right? Like, you need to stop wasting Shea Patterson's time. That kid is good, and he's playing on a team that's probably never going to play for a bowl game again, right? In his entire collegiate career. They are going to, if any of this stuff ends up being proven true, the NCAA, which, by the way, is not a court of law and does not need definitive evidence, by the way, NCAA can stomp Ole Miss to kingdom come, right? And at some point, you have to realize, like, maybe doubling down on Hugh Freeze and tripling down and quadrupling down on Hugh Freeze is not a great idea, right? And I want to say that, like, Hugh Freeze, he's the guy that's just lying to them, and they're not aware of all this stuff, but that's not true. That doesn't make any sense. There is too much support for Hugh Freeze from this administration for the administration not to be aware of this. Because every school I know that's been involved in some kind of scandal, even when they've stood behind the coach and they've backed him up, they got real quiet. We're not trying to let anybody know anything. Right? Like, remember when Jim Boeheim and Syracuse got in trouble for their violations? Nobody said a word. Right? Roy Williams, North Carolina, they got in trouble for their violations. They were faking classes that students could go to, and then they would get fake grades to have their GPA high enough to play. And nobody said a word. They hid. Right? Like, the administration didn't release statements about how Roy Williams was their guy. But guess what? Ole Miss released statements about how Hugh Freeze was their guy moving forward. Like, Hugh Freeze should have his butt on the hot seat, right? Because I ranked all the SEC coaches from hottest seat or from least hot seat to most hot seat, right? Nick Saban is the least hot seat in football, like, not even the SEC, just in football. Who's going to be the person that fires Nick Saban? No one. If Nick Saban went next year and didn't win a game, no one's going to fire Nick Saban. Kevin Sumlin is on the hottest seat. Kevin Sumlin's seat's not just hot; his whole house is on fire. Like, he's gone at the end of this year, because there's no way, with that offense that they've got going on there over in College Station at Texas A&M, there's no way that Kevin Sumlin can win enough games. But that being said, Hugh Freeze should be, just based on the results and based on all the violations, honestly, Hugh Freeze should be right where Kevin Sumlin is on the hot seat ranking. Instead, he's closer to Saban, right? He's closer to Saban, and he's closer to Saban because Ole Miss just said, no, we're not going to fire him. No, We refuse. And they're playing chicken with the NCAA. And I'm telling you, you don't want to play chicken with the NCAA, right? Here are the schools that get away with NCAA violations, as it were. Texas, USC, Alabama, Florida. I mean, like all the traditional powers, right? You can get away with violations in basketball if you're North Carolina, if you're Syracuse, because you notice North Carolina and Syracuse didn't get in any trouble, right? You can get away with violations if you're Louisville. I noticed that Rick Pitino got student athletes involved in drugs and prostitutes and still has a job. Can still win a national title this year. Has not been banned from postseason play. If you're a traditional power. If you're Ole Miss, you're not a traditional power. You're not. You don't want to play chicken with that organization. They want to make an example out of you, and you are continuing to give them things to make an example out of you over. So in addition to possibly being in trouble for being in charge of an organization that has overseen the payouts of $20,000 in cash and extra benefits, in addition to that, it's also been the violations of trying to get out of that, right? And they say this all the time, that it's not the crime. It's the cover-up. The cover-up is what does you in. The cover-up is what did Richard Nixon in. The cover-up, you cannot be sloppy with the cover-up. And Ole Miss has been not just sloppy with the cover-up, careless. Right? And Nick Saban had the quote of SEC Media Days before today, right? Nick Saban's quote of SEC Media Days was, I never waste a failure, right? Referring to his 14-1 season in which he went to a national title game and was one touchdown away from winning. He said, I never waste a failure. That to me is the coolest quote, and he got trumped. He got absolutely trumped by Ole Miss and everything that Hugh Freeze said, because everything that Hugh Freeze says, given the context of the situation that school is in, is amazing, right? Here's a quote from Hugh Freeze. Here's something that Hugh Freeze said at one point that is spectacular. He said, integrity is not always doing the right thing, but it is when something is done that is right, you own it. That is not what integrity is. That's not what the definition of integrity is. Here's the definition of integrity, actually. Doing the right thing when no one is looking. And Ole Miss thought nobody was looking, and they paid out $20,000 in cash, allegedly, to players. And now, Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss stepped in all the boo-boo. All of it. What do you mean? He's like, the quote doesn't even make any sense. Integrity, he said, is not always doing the right thing, but it is when something is done that is right, you own it. You own only when the stuff is right. Integrity is always doing the right thing. It's always doing the right thing. If someone's watching you, you do the right thing. If no one's watching you, you do the right thing. That's what integrity is. The reason why Hugh Freeze doesn't appear to have any integrity is because he doesn't know what it means. Like, he literally doesn't know what it means. Which is crazy. I mean, it's beyond crazy at this point. The man opened his press conference with a 3,000-word filibuster as though that was going to get him off the hook. It is not. I mean, there's so many quotes from Hugh Freeze here, including at one point in the press conference where he said, I would absolutely love to comment on it, when he was being asked about the Houston Nutt lawsuit, followed by him avoiding all questions, not commenting on it, and opening with a statement that said that he didn't want to comment on it and that all questions need to be directed to the lawyers. Like, of course you don't want to comment on it. But don't say that, come on, don't say you want to comment on it when you don't want to comment on it. Right? Like, oh, I believe integrity is when you do the right thing, you own it. No, integrity is when you do the right thing, you own it. When you do the wrong thing, you own it. When people are watching, you do the right thing. When people are not watching, you do the right thing. Integrity is always doing the right thing. It's something that Hugh Freeze apparently knows nothing about. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you on this show in 24 hours.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. EJ Pelton Company, 332-3339.
The Homeschool Expo is just ahead. It's the biggest education event of the year. It's going to be Saturday, July 21st and 22nd. There's going to be dozens of workshops. There's going to be 70 exhibitors. There's going to be math, writing, software, books, colleges, history, free personal advice. You name it, we've got it. Go to cstea.org to learn more. That's csthea.org.
This is Thomas DeMoss with Keller Williams Realty. I am a realtor in Chattanooga. We list and sell homes, work with buyers, work with home sellers. I have been involved in real estate for over 10 years. My background is as a real estate investor. That is what I bring to the table, is that real estate investor mindset. My job is to help you sell your house for the most money, employing the best marketing strategy and walking you through what can be a rather stressful process. So we are encouraging people who are on the fence or even thought about selling their house to give us a call. There's no obligation. We're just here to kind of have a conversation, let people know what the process is like, what the market is like, what values they can expect to receive. We work with buyers as well. I also have a buyer's agent that works exclusively with my buyers because we want to give our clients as much attention as we can. My cell phone number is 423-364-0028. Our website is northriverpropertygroup.com. That's northriverpropertygroup.com. We'd love for you guys to call us.
I've been a customer at SNS 14 years. It's way out of my way, but I'm well treated. I believe what I'm told. Price is reasonable. David Tulis here. Make an SNS appointment today. This week, get $50 off any 30,000-mile service or timing belt repair. And get a free combat knife as a gift. SNS Auto Repair specializes in Toyota, Lexus, Honda, Acura, Scion, Nissan, and Infiniti. 6-time winner of Best of the Best Award in the Times Free Press. 855-3436. ssautorepair.net. 855-3436.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what